Right guys, welcome back to the channel, and first of all I just want to apologise. You'll probably notice I've got a very sore throat, so apologies about that. Please bear with me throughout the video. But a massive thank you to Games Workshop for sending over Faith and Fury's Psychic Awakening 2, and there is a lot of cool stuff in here. There's lots of stuff for Space Marines, Black Templars and Chaos Space Marines. It's fantastic that Games Workshop are actually expanding on all of the rules and releasing these. However, there is a few bad points about this book, and I'm just going to be honest about it, right? So some of the Space Marine stuff in there is really cool, but there's nothing for Blood Angels, which I know Psychic Awakening 3 is supposed to be Blood Angels. Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Death Watch, and I think there's another Space Marine chapter that are Psychers in the silver, but I don't know who they are because no one really talks about them. So yeah, that's the first thing I don't like. The second thing I don't like is if you want to play Space Marines, you need this, and then you need this, and then you need this. I don't like this. Yeah, it is what it is. Thirdly, the third thing I don't like, whilst it is nice to get new Chaos stuff, let's face it, the second edition Chaos Codex wasn't great. It certainly wasn't anything on par with the Space Marine one. This does not take it up to the Space Marine one. This is... It's not even this for the Chaos Legions, which is a real shame. But nevertheless, it is something. I still think there's some really cool stuff in here. Those are just the things that I didn't like about this book. So for a Space Marine player, let's have a look straight in at what we're getting for Space Marines once I get past the missions. So adeptus Astartes, Masters of the Chapter. You've got access to a whole host of new stratagems which will allow you to upgrade certain characters, give them extra buffs, and then because they are certain character types, they get access to specific relics and warlord traits as well. The other thing is chapter litanies for chaplains. What's that? I don't know. But you've now got 6 specific ones for your 6 Codex supplement litanies, and your chaplain knows this in addition, but I can't see anywhere that says he can use it in addition, so I think he can still only use the one. But the White Scar one, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model with from a friendly White Scar unit within 6, you can re-roll the wound rolls. That's pretty alright. The Imperial Fists one, you can overwatch on a 5 or a 6 for units within 6. The Salamanders one, units within 6 can perform heroic interventions. The Iron Hands one, add 1 to the strength characteristic of models within 6, so that's Dreadnoughts. Ultramarine one, you can reroll any or all dice rolls of a 1 for making advance and charge rolls. And the Raven Guard, the unit can shoot in a turn in which it fell back. If that unit can fly, it can charge in a turn in which it fell back. So they're all pretty useful. So these are the characters. So I'll go through what each one does, and I'll mention a couple of the warlord traits and the relics as we go. But the Master of Sanctity is for a chaplain. So you can only use this stratagem once per battle. So obviously they've clarified that as a result of, I think, what was printed in the Iron Hands book before that was FAQ'd. So basically the Master of Sanctity can know 1 additional litany from the litanies of battle, and can recite 1 additional litany at the start of the battle round. So he would actually know 4. The 1 on the War Scroll, the 2 from his own chapter, 2 from the normal litanies, and then 1 from his chapter as well, and he can use 2 of them. So that's the stratagem, and obviously you don't have to make him your warlord, you can just use that. However, if he is your warlord, you can Reroll the dice when determining litanies, which if you're using 2 and relying on them is pretty good. Bellowing Firebrand, add 3 inches to the range of the litanies, which is also pretty decent. The Sacrosanct Rosarius gives him a 3-up invuln. And the Emperor's Judgment, when resolving an attack made against a model with this relic, your opponent cannot reroll hit rolls, cannot reroll wound rolls, and cannot reroll damage rolls. In addition, when a morale test is taken from the enemy unit within 6 of a model with this rule, roll 2 dice and discard the lowest. So it's okay. Master of the Forge, which is for Tech Marines, and I think you'll probably see this in Iron Hands lists, to be honest. So 1 command point, you turn a Tech Marine or a Tech Marine Gunner into a Master of the Forge, and he heals 3 wounds lost instead of D3. So I think you probably see him alongside the Iron Hands character as well. So for Warlord traits, you when resolving attack made by a friendly chapter vehicle model within 6, add 1 to the hit rolls. That means that Iron Hand repulsors are hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s when the Devastator Doctrine is active. So yeah. Warden of the Ancients, add 1 to the strength and attack characteristic of friendly Dreadnought models that are within 6. Like, I would love that for Blood Angels. But again, I think for Iron Hands, or even Salamanders, that's going to be pretty decent. Relics, however, you've got an axe that does a mortal wound on a vehicle if you fail a save, but it's strength +3, -3 and D3 damage. And you've also got the Endurant Protector. Add 1 to the toughness characteristic of a model with this relic and give him a 4-up invulnerable save. Chief Librarian. You can basically, 1 additional psychic power, and you can attempt to deny an additional 1, not cast an additional 1. The Warlord traits, add 1 to his casting roll. And you can generate psychic powers from any discipline that you are able to draw from. You don't have to stick to 1. So you could take 1, for example, you could take like Might of Heroes or Null Zone, and then 1 from your own chapter. Relics, we've got the Vinculum Vitae. When resolving attack with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 inflicts D3 mortal wounds on the target instead of any other damage. So that's pretty good. Or the Neural Shroud. Add 12 inches to his Psychic Hood ability, so he suddenly becomes a 24-inch -1, +1 to deny, sorry. The Chief Apothecary, so you can re-roll the dice to determine if a destroyed model is returned to the unit or not. That's pretty okay, depending on what you're healing. But for Warlord traits, I think some of these are decent. Father of the Future. When a model in a friendly chapter infantry or biker unit would lose a wound, whilst they're within 6 of the Warlord, you basically have a 6-up feel no pain. If that unit has the Flesh is Weak chapter tactic, that wound is not lost on a 5-up instead. That's brutal. So, Selfless Healer. You can attempt to heal 2 units basically. And you basically, even if you recover the Gene Seed, you can still do it the second time. So it's okay depending upon what you're healing. Relics, we've got the Acquittal, which is a 16-inch pistol, strength 5, -3, 1 damage, but against a vehicle or monster it is D6 damage. That's pretty good. And Healer's Aegis, friendly chapter infantry models have a 5+ invulnerable save whilst they're within an inch of this model. Notice it's models, not units, and they have to be within an inch. So I don't think that one is that great. Chapter Ancient, and I noticed that the Dark Angel one has been stolen here. So if you spend a command point on the Chapter Ancient, you add 1 to the leadership characteristic of that model. In addition, the model gains the Chapter Ancient keyword and the following ability. Friendly chapter units benefit from this model's Astartes banner ability if they're within 9 instead of 6, and obviously you can only use this stratagem once. However, if he's your Warlord, Units within 3 can perform heroic interventions. That's okay. And steadfast example. Defenders of Humanity ability is in effect on all units within 3. If they already have that ability, they count as 2 models. So your intercessors and your tactical marines and stuff would count as 2 models. For your relics, you've got the standard of righteous hatred. Models that shoot, basically when they are destroyed, get to shoot with a ballistic skill or a weapon skill of 2+. Or Pennant of the Fallen, you get to make 2 attacks with your melee weapons when you remove them instead of just the 1. And then you've got the Chapter Champion, which most people tend not to take these guys, but they're a very cheap elite choice. And with this, I think it's definitely worth looking into. However, he gets an extra attack and leadership as a result of this. He also gains a skillful parry. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon against this model, subtract 1 from the hit rolls. That in itself isn't great, but when you combine it with the Warlord trait, Master Duelist, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model against this Warlord, on a hit roll of a 1, roll a d6, and on a 4+, the model's unit suffers a mortal wound after the unit has finished shooting or fighting. So that's okay. Martial Exemplar. When a charge roll is made for friendly units within 6 inches, you can re-roll the roll for the charge, so that's okay. The Blade of Triumph is a master-crafted power sword, but it's 3 damage with +2 strength and -4 AP. Or you've got the Angel Artifice, which gives him a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable. So if you're running Space Marines, you probably kind of need that book. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. And like I said, that's what I don't like about this book, is the fact that I feel those should have been in Codex Space Marines. And then obviously the chapter-specific ones should have been, the litanies should have been in the supplements. Speaking of supplements, the Black Templar supplement is right in the middle of this book. So I won't cover the whole lot of it, because obviously it's an entire supplement worth of material inside of here. What I will cover though is the Doctrine ability, so Knights of Sigismund. So whilst the Assault Doctrine is active, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a Black Templar unit with an ability against a unit that is not a vehicle, when you were charged, perform heroic intervention, any unmodified hit rolls of a 6 automatically wound. That is fantastic for Thunderhammers, Power Fists, God, even Power Swords, because you know, with -3 AP, you're not having to roll to wound at all, it's just an auto wound. That I think is quite strong. And if Blood Angel's got something even remotely close to that, I'd be over the moon. We've got the data sheets, of course, for Helbrecht, the Emperor's Champion, Chaplain Grimaldus, the Cenobite Servitors, and of course the Crusader squad in there as well. We've got the litanies of the Devout, and the reason the Black Templars get a full 6 litanies is because they obviously can't take librarians. So this is to kind of substitute for the Librarius discipline. So the litanies, select 1 Black Templar unit within 6, and when a model in that unit would lose a wound, roll a dice, and on a 5-up the wound is not lost. So that's actually alright. Psalm of the Remorseless Persecution. If this litany is inspiring, then when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in a friendly Black Templars unit within 6, you can reroll wound rolls of a 1. So that is actually going to work quite well in conjunction with their chapter trait. Vow of the Retribution. If this litany is inspiring, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristic of models in enemy units whilst this unit is within 6. It's okay, but there's so much that ignores morale in the game at present. The Fires of Devotion. Select 1 friendly Black Templar unit within 6. If that unit makes a charge move or performs a heroic intervention, add 1 to the attack characteristic. That is the one that you want. So I do see sort of 2 or 3 chaplains easily in a Black Templars list. I think that one's very good. I think re-rolling the wounds of a 1 is quite good as well. Fervent Acclamation. If it's inspiring, add 3 to the range of Black Templar units or abilities whilst they're within 6 inches of this model. So that's okay. And then Oath of Glory. Select a friendly Black Templar unit within 6. That unit always fights first in the fight phase, even if it did not make a charge move that turn. The enemy units, obviously you know the rest of the rules. So that's actually not bad. It almost gives you a free interruption. Warlord traits. We've got Oath Keeper. The Warlord can perform heroic intervention within 6 instead of 3. Epitome of Piety. The Warlord can attempt to resist 1 psychic power in the opponent's psychic phase in the same manner as a Psyker. When a deny the witch test is taken for this Warlord, you add 1 to the total as well. So that's decent. Paragon of Fury. After this Warlord finishes a charge move, for each enemy unit within an inch, roll a d6, and on a 2+, they suffer 1 mortal wound. Master of Arms. The Warlord always fights first in the fight phase, even if they did not charge. If enemy, well, you know the rest of the rule, it doesn't change from ability to ability. Inspirational Fighter. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a friendly Black Templar unit within 6 of this model, and a modified wound roll of a 6, improve the armor penetration characteristic of the weapon by 1. So that's actually pretty decent. Frontline Commander. Units within 6 of this Warlord advances or makes a charge move, add 1 to the advance or charge roll. That's pretty good. And do you know what? Looking at them, I hope they do even half of this for Blood Angels and Space Wolves, because this wants me to be in combat and I like it. So I'll mention a couple of the stratagems and then we'll move on to a couple of the relics before moving on to the chaos stuff as well. So Arbor the Witch. When an enemy psycho model manifests a psychic power within 24 of a Black Templar unit from your army, after any deny the witch attempts have been made, roll a dice, and on a 4+, the psychic power is resisted. So you get to deny, then you spend a command point, and on a 4+, you simply stop it. That's good. You can take extra relics on your sergeant. Devout Push. Use this stratagem at the start of your fight phase. Select a Black Templar infantry or biker unit from your army. Until the end of that phase, they can pile in, and when that unit consolidates, move up to 6 instead of 3. That's powerful. Tenacious Assault. An infantry unit that does not have the flyer battlefield rolling within an inch of a Black Templar infantry unit from your army is chosen to fall back. Roll 1d6, and on a 2+, that unit cannot fall back, so you're holding them in combat. It's 2 CP for what Dark Eldar Witches do naturally, but it's alright. You know, it could be quite crucial, you know, if you've got a weakened character and your opponent wants to pull back. 2 CP, you can stop them. The Emperor's Will. Use it in your moving phase when a Black Templar infantry unit army advances. Until the end of this turn, models from that unit can still shoot with their pistols and the unit can still charge. 1 CP to do that. To run and charge and still shoot with your pistols. That's fantastic, and you wouldn't even suffer the penalty either. Oaths of Honor. Use this stratagem in the fight phase and select a scout unit from your army that made a charge move. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a model in that unit, you can re-roll wound rolls. It's okay. Vicious Riposte. Use it in the fight phase and select the Black Templar infantry unit from your army is chosen as the target of an attack until the end of the phase when resolving an attack made with a model against that unit. On an unmodified save roll of a 6, the attacker model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound after it's finished. So that's nice to bounce some wounds back as well. And then Shock and Awe. Use this stratagem in the charge phase. Select the Black Templar infantry unit from your army disembarked from a Land Raider Crusader this turn. Until the end of that turn, enemy units cannot fire Overwatch at the selected unit, and when resolving an attack made against that unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. It's 1 CP. So that's fantastic, because you could technically get them out, run them, still shoot with your pistols, still charge with no overwatch, and get -1 to hit for 2 CP. I love it. I love it. That is fantastic for combat heavy armies. I like it a lot. And my least favourite part of the book. Now, I wanted this to be so much more, and it could have been with just an extra sentence or two in every section here. Guys, this is not the equivalent of a Codex supplement. I'm sorry, as a World Eaters player, when was the last time you saw my World Eaters on the channel? There you go, that's why. There is some cool stuff in here. There's some cool stuff for some specific legions in here. But look, there's a lot of information to go through. I'm not going to cover it all. I will cover 3 or 4 things for each legion, as well as the generic rules that have been updated. So, Champions of Ruin, it basically goes over Hateful Assault, Malicious Volleys, which is your Bolt of Discipline, and the updated weaponry, the Demolisher Cannon's now D6 as well. That's it. And that ability to use demon weapons, so basically any character can access these demon weapons. Some of them are good, some of them I don't think are that great, but basically on the roll of a 1 you suffer a mortal wound, and on 2+ you can fight with the weapon. One I do like is this one, the Golax Fist of Decay, Nurgle model only. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, subtract 1 from the hit roll, but an unmodified wound roll of a 2+ is always successful. Chances are you're going to be strength 8, possibly 10, but the fact it just wounds on a 2+ is really good. It's you know, quite a nice little buff. I also like Zal the Wrathful as a Khorne player as well. So it's for a power sword or a Hellforged sword. When rolling for this weapon's demon weapon ability on a 2+, add the number to this weapon's strength characteristic equal to that roll. So you probably strength 5, possibly 6, depending on how you're building your Khorne character. You could make him strength 12 if you got lucky. So that's pretty decent. And of course it's -5 and a flat 2 damage. So some very cool stuff there. Word bearers, now they could have added an extra paragraph in here with, you know, an extra chapter trait, or saying that vehicles got access to the Legion abilities. I'm sorry, but vehicles don't get it. It's still stuck to cavalry, infantry, bikers and hellbrutes. So that is a massive, massive shame. But there is a couple of stratagems, relics and warlord traits, so it gives you a little bit more flavour. So for the word bearers, of course, being demon heavy, master of the union, demon units whilst they're within 6 get +1 attack. That's pretty cool. Exalted possession, your warlord gains the possessed and demon keyword, add 1 to his strength and attacks, and add 1 inch to this warlord's move. So that's pretty decent as well, and of course you can buff him with greater possessed as well. Stratagems, and of course artifacts as well. A hexagrammic wand. Use this stratagem at any phase after making a saving throw for a word bearer's character model from your army. Treat the result of that saving throw as a 6. Each word bearer's character model from your army can only be the target of this stratagem once per battle. That's good. That's so good. Notice it's a saving throw, so it's basically a 1 CP auto pass. Especially if he's a demon, because he'll have an in run. So that's pretty good. Dark Pact. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase when a word bearer's character model from your army attempts to summon a unit of demons. When making the summoning roll for the attempt, you can re-roll the dice, and this character will not suffer any mortal wounds. It's pretty cool. It's very thematic. The Malefic Tome. A model with this relic knows 1 additional sighted power from the chosen discipline, and add 1 to the total. It's pretty cool. Book of the Reviler. Model is not a demon only. Before the battle, A model with this relic can read from the Book of the Reviler. If it does, randomly generate 2 Chaos Boons for that model from the table found in the Chaos Boon stratagem on in Codex Chaos Space Marines. Re-rolling Spawndom and Demonhood and duplicate results. Note that doing so does not cost any command points, and an enemy character vehicle or monster model does not have to be destroyed. So you can just give them 2 buffs without the risk of becoming a spawn or a demon prince. And that's literally all you get. You get some specific tactical cards and a name generator, and it's the same for each of the legions, unfortunately. So Night Lords, 1 piece at a time, this warlord can charge in a turn in which they fell back. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon against this warlord, subtract 1. Killing Fury, add D3 to the attack characteristics of this warlord in a turn in which they were charged, made a charge, performed heroic intervention. And Dirty Fighter, whilst there are more friendly models within 3 of this warlord than enemy models, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by this warlord, add 1 to the wound roll. So when he's in a crowd, basically, you get +1 to wound. Stratagems from the Knight. Use this stratagem at the start of your charge phase. Select 1 Night Lord's infantry unit from your army that is entirely on or within a terrain feature. Until the end of the turn, when a charge roll is made for that unit, add 2 to the result. And when resolving an attack with a melee weapon by modeling that unit, add 1 to the hit rolls. That's 1 CP. That means if you're dropping down your Raptors, your Possessed or Warp Talons, you're getting a 7-inch charge with +1 to hit. That's not bad. And then Raptor Strike, of course. Before making the charge rolls for a Night Lord's jump pack unit that was set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, you can roll 3d6. So you could actually pull it off twice, depending on what your setup is. And for only 1 CP as well. In fact, the Blood Angel one's 2 CP. I know it is. That's pretty. That's nice. Artifacts of the Night Lords. Scourging Chains. Improve the armor penetration characteristic of the melee weapon by 1. Subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of any models whilst they're within an inch. So that's pretty cool as well. Next up, we've got the Alpha Legion. I'm Alfarius. In addition to this Warlord trait, the Warlord has 1 randomly generated Chaos Space Marine Warlord trait from the Codex. If this Warlord is destroyed, you can immediately select another Alpha Legion character from your army to take their place and generate a Warlord trait. If the mission you are playing grants victory points for destroying the enemy Warlord, your opponent will only achieve the objective if all Alpha Legion characters are destroyed. So it's like that Custodians one, Honor the Mantle, but it's a Warlord trait. That, like, there's no reason not to take that, because you then still get the other one. It's great. It's great. Ambush. Use a stratagem in your opponent's movement phase after an enemy unit is set up on the battlefield. Select an Alpha Legion unit from your army within 18 and shoot at it. 2 CP, you don't suffer the -1. We are Alfarius. Use this stratagem before the battle. After nominating your Warlord, select 1 Alpha Legion character model from your army that is not your Warlord and determine a Warlord trait for it. It is regarded as your Warlord for the purposes of Warlord trait, and each Warlord trait in your army must be unique, so you can still get extra Warlord traits to buff your characters up with that as well. So, relics. We've got Hydra's Whale. Once per battle, at the start of the battle round, if a model with this relic is on the battlefield, it can activate the Hydra's Whale. Until the end of the battle round, when your opponent spends command points to use a stratagem, roll a d6. And on a 4+, your opponent must spend 1 extra command point. So it's a bit like the Kalidas Assassin, the Reign of Confusion ability for her. So some pretty cool stuff. It does help. I wish there was a tiny bit more. Okay, Iron Warrior time. So, Bastion for the Warlord trait. When resolving an attack made with a weapon that has an armor penetration of -1 against a friendly Iron Warriors unit within 6 of your warlord and receiving the benefit of cover, the weapon is treated as having an armor penetration of 0. So it's almost the same as the Imperial Fist one. Siege Master, this one's going to be good. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by a model in a friendly Iron Warriors Havoc's unit, you can reroll wound rolls of a 1. So you give that to a lord, he's suddenly rerolling hit rolls of a 1, rerolling wound rolls of a 1. So I think that's going to be very good, especially with chain cannons. Especially with chain cannons. You've got Tank Hunters. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase or the fight phase when you choose an Iron Warriors unit from your army that's not a cultist. Select one enemy vehicle unit until the end of the phase. When resolving an attack made by a model with an Iron Warriors unit against the selected unit, you can re-roll the wound rolls. So I think that's better than the Fist one, because the Fist one gives you +1 to wound, I believe. So that was pretty good. Rampant Technovirus up next. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase or the fight phase when you select an Iron Warrior. Obliterate a unit or mutilate a unit from your army to shoot or fight with. Until the end of that phase, you can re-roll any or all D3 rolls made for the flesh metal guns or flesh metal weapons. That is fantastic. That might make Obliterate shooting twice almost viable now. As far as artifacts go, the Spite Spitter is a combi bolter that has strength 5 -3 D3 damage. It's okay. What have we got next? We've got the Axe of the Forge Master. So when resolving an attack made against a vehicle, and a modified hit roll of a 5+, inflicts D3 mortal wounds in addition to its damage. So that's actually not bad. We've then got Emperor's Children. So stimulated by the pain, add 1 to your warlord's attack characteristics for each wound he has suffered. If your warlord regains any wounds, he loses the associated bonus. Okay. Intoxicating Mask is -1 to hit for any enemy models whilst they're within 3. And reduce damage by 1. So that's pretty cool as well. But Faultless Duelist. At the start of the fight phase, roll a D3 until the end of that phase. Subtract the result from attacks characteristic of enemy models whilst they are within an inch of this warlord. That's pretty decent. So, Honor the Prince. Use this stratagem in your charge phase. After making a charge roll, you can change the result of one of the D6 to a 6. That's fantastic. Combat elixirs is a little bit like combat drugs, I think, for Dark Eldar. Select an Emperor's Children unit from your army that is not a vehicle or Chaos Cultists. The effects apply to models in that unit until the end of the battle. +1 attack, +1 strength, +2 inch movement, or +1 toughness. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. Depending on what you're running and how you're building, that could be quite good. Cruel Duelists. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when an Emperor's Children unit from your army that is not a vehicle or cultist is chosen to fight. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack with a melee weapon by a model in that unit, and a modified wound roll of a 6, that weapon has an armor penetration of -3. That's fantastic. Really, really good. Armor of Abhorrence. Enemy units cannot fire Overwatch at a model with this relic. If an enemy unit fails a morale test whilst it's within 6, 1 additional model flees. That's good. That's good. I like that a lot. And there's a power sword or force sword there. At the start of the fight phase, the bearer can look upon their reflection. Until the end of that phase, the weapon has a strength characteristic of ×2. But when resolving an attack made with this weapon, subtract 1 from the hit rolls. So you can make it strength 8 -4 D3, but you're at -1 to hit. That's not bad. It basically becomes a power fist. And my favourite, the World Eaters. Some nice stuff in here. When an advance or charge roll is made for a friendly World Eater units within your Warlord, add 1 to your result. That's good. Slaughterborn, when an enemy character, monster or titanic model is destroyed as a result of an attack made by the Warlord, add 1 to his attacks and strength. An Arch Slaughterer, at the start of the fight phase, add D3 to this Warlord's attack characteristics if there are more enemy models within 3 than there are friendly models. These extra attacks last until the end of that fight phase. Stratagems, Blood for the Blood God. You use this stratagem in the fight phase after an enemy unit is destroyed as a result of an attack made by a World Eaters unit from your army. Until the start of your next phase, when morale test is taken for a friendly World Eaters unit, do not roll the dice, it automatically passes. It's 2 CP. Do you know what I mean? You would just go like there, 2 CP. I've passed Insane Bravery. However, Stoke the Nails. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a World Eater's infantry or biker unit from your army that's not a Chaos Cultist is chosen to fight. Until the end of that phase, that unit's Death to the False Emperor ability takes effect when targeting enemy models, not just Imperium units. In addition, when targeting Imperium units, the ability takes effect on a 5+. I like that. And the Red Butchers. Use this stratagem before the battle. Select 1 World Eater Chaos Terminator unit from your army. Add 1 to the strength characteristics of models in that unit, and the unit gains the following ability. Blood for the Blood God. This unit can fight twice in each of the charge phases, each of the fight phases. So basically they become Khorne Berserker Terminators, which is fantastic. So I might have to get some Terminators at some point. As for relics, the Berserker Glaive is one of my favourites. When the bearer would lose a wound, roll a dice, and on a d6, the wound is not lost on a 5+. But it's +1 strength, -2 damage. It's still a decent power axe, but you get a 5 of feel no pain as well. Helm of Furor. Add 2 to the strength characteristic of a model with this relic, and at the start of your charge phase, the model with this relic is within 8 inches, it must attempt to charge. Gorefather. Model with a chain axe only. This relic replaces a chain axe and has the following abilities. So it's strength +2, -2, and 3 damage, and it replaces a chain axe. When resolving attack with this weapon, subtract 1 from the hit roll, and in a modified wound roll of a 6, the target suffers 3 mortal wounds, and the attack sequence ends. I like that it's a chain axe. It's a chain axe. So, as you can see, there is some very cool stuff in there for the Legions. It's just not enough, if you ask me. I will be getting the World Eaters back out very soon. I'll be repainting some of them and adding to them a little bit as well. Hopefully we'll get a battle report in with them in the next week or 2. But check out the rest of the channel, guys. There is an Orcs versus Blood Angels battle report just about to drop. So go and check that out. And we'll see you again very soon.